Okay, so in this lesson, I'm going to talk about double stops, what they are, how do you play them on a fiddle, where to put them, some different flavors, so basic, intermediate, and advanced sort of versions of double stops. And I'll give you exercises to help with each of those different flavors. We'll also take a look at the beginning of A Shokin Farewell. It's out of the key of D. It's a great song that really lends itself to a lot of these open droning double stops. And so let's go ahead and get started with that. I'll play the beginning of A Shokin Farewell without double stops, and then I'll show you how it would sound with double stops as well. And with. So let's talk about basic double stops. The idea is that you're playing two strings at the same time with equal pressure on each string, and you can be fingering one or both of those strings. So to help you get started, our first exercise is to just practice bowing across two strings with equal weight on each string with your bow, which sounds easy, but if you've been playing single note fiddling for a while, you're going to have to retrain your arm a little bit. Some of these angles, you have to be exactly precise. When you're playing just one string, you kind of have a range of angles that will work on one note. So you have some leeway there. But when you're playing two notes at the same time, you can't rock your bow. You have to be perfectly on. And so the idea here is we're going to start on our G and D. We'll play two notes there. We'll start then to the D and A. And then we'll move up to the A and E, like this. So I would recommend practicing that if you're not familiar with double stops, just every time that you pick up your fiddle. Do that a couple of times, and that will help you really solidify these angles that we're working with. So that's a good basic exercise. So starting in on where you would drone one open string and finger another, there's two options here. You can either drone the lower string, so say we're playing on A and D. You can drone the lower D and finger on the A string, or you can drone the A string and finger on the lower note. That's a little bit more difficult, not all that bad, but I want to start with fingering the A note. So we're going to walk up with a scale over D, starting in the fifth note in the scale, which is an A. So drone your D and walk up a major D scale, starting with the fifth note. Again. It's not bad, right? You just have to kind of keep your finger out of the way of touching the D string as you're walking up. Now, a little bit more complicated, but again, not too bad, is when you're fingering on the D string and droning on your A string. The only difference here is that you really do have to, because we're kind of reaching over the fiddle from the right-hand side of the neck as you look at it, your fingers have a tendency to fall over and want to touch just barely that A string. And if you do that, you'll get a wolf tone, you'll get a harmonic, you'll get a whistle, you'll get a squawk, all things that we're trying to avoid in these situations. So walk up over a D scale on your D string. So we're starting on the first note in the scale here, and we'll drone our A string as we do that. Okay? Once you have both of those exercises down, you can combine them. Just play a D scale. When you're fingering the D string, you're droning on your A. When you're fingering the A string, you're droning on your D. So this angle does not change. This will be a good exercise to help you with the idea that regardless of where your fingers are, you're playing a double stop over D and A. This doesn't change. So those would be what I'd consider your two basic exercises to help you with this. I'm kind of combining that second exercise, those two different versions, into one. So you have the open string, play across all strings, and then you have your D scale, and you can work that out over the A and the E string, just play an A major scale, or minor. You can switch this up and play, whatever scale you want, but drone on that open combination of strings. So that's that. Let's take a look at Ashokan Farewell. We're going to use that first drone with an open D that we talked about. Remember how that's our first exercise there? That's how the song starts. I'm doing a hammer-on. If you're not sure what a hammer-on is, look at the separate exercise video I have on that. So we're also doing some slurs, but the idea is, are the notes we're playing droning at the D at the same time makes it sound a little more rich. Okay, I went on just a little bit there, and I did a hammer-on with a slur. So the notes themselves with the drone. Okay, we're just taking that concept that we created an exercise for and applying it to this melody. So now we're playing over the key of D here. Now we're getting ready to go to a key of G. The background guitar player is playing G on the next phrase. So if you think about it, we're going to have to sort of change what we're doing. We can't drone on an open D necessarily, except for in passing. So we're going to the, that's the phrase we're working over right here. So I do a trill here, or just straight to the third finger. So when you do that, you can drone the first part of that trill over an open A. Okay, so you're playing a note, you're playing two notes that are just a whole step apart on the last part of that, and that doesn't sound great when you're playing by yourself. But when you use it as a passing note and you're heading towards a G resolve, it sounds fine. So that's the second half of that lick. So I'm doing a third finger, and then I'm hammering my first finger down to create a G chord. Okay, we're playing the first and the third notes in this chord. So thinking about a major triad, you're playing the first two notes of a major triad chord over G. And now with the beginning of that, droning on the A. Okay, so let's put those two together. All right. Now we're going to move on. So a couple of options here. We're getting into some more advanced ideas, and so I guess I should probably talk about what I would consider an advanced double stop to be. So what I would classify more advanced double stop to include would be either moving fingers on both strings as you play through a lick, or using your fourth finger. I kind of keep that as a separate idea because fourth finger, as humans, we're a little bit behind the curve. We only have one tendon that controls both our fourth and our third finger here, so it's very difficult to get your fourth finger in tune with power and also keep it out of the way of the string above it. So if you're droning with a fourth finger A note on your D string, it's difficult to keep your fourth finger out of the way of the A string, which you're playing on. And then also third position double stops. That's really why I would consider the second half of this Ashokan Farewell bit a little more complex, as I slid up and I hit third position. Really any double stop in any position outside of first I would consider difficult. So since the section we're working on in Ashokan Farewell involves sliding up to third position, let's concentrate on that right now. I will circle back and I'll show you some examples of and maybe some exercises for playing double stops where your fingers are fingering both strings that you're playing on. And then I'll also show you some techniques and sort of exercises to work on strengthening your fourth finger. But for right now, let's think about third position double stops. And I have covered how to get up into third position in a separate technique video that's available on the site. So if you're struggling to get into tune as you slide up into third position, definitely do yourself a favor, check that out, because there are some tips that I have to help you stay in tune. But let's look at this second half of this intro lick to Ashokan that goes up into third position. A little out of tune there, which is not uncommon. But the idea, we did that with a hammer on. Now, you can drone on your open A here. These notes walking down are little trill there. One more time. With the drone. You should end here. This is your second finger. So this is a B note on your G string. And you're droning your open D. So when you do this, you're going to slide up and hopefully in tune catch a D note with your second finger. Is half of the challenge here. The other half is you got to get your first finger down to play what normally would be a third finger on your D string, and that's a G note. And I slide it down halfway through the slide. I don't have the finger down here, but I do up here. So there's a lot of things going on. You have to, in your mind, know exactly where that second finger needs to go. As you slide up, you need to place your first finger down and slide it up to catch a G note when you get to the top of that lick. Okay, so again, first finger on the D string, playing a G note. Second finger on the G string, playing a D note. Okay, now I'm not going to continue to go on too far into this song because I do teach it on the site and I do cover all of these double stops there. But if you're just interested in double stops, I thought that was a really good tune to work on because you can do a lot of droning over open Ds and As when you're playing in the key of D. And so if you're interested in learning the rest of the song, by all means, take a look at that lesson. I'll explain the double stops we just went over there, as well as many more. But this lesson is mainly focused on giving you a sample of the different types of double stops and giving you also some exercises to work on. So for exercises in third position for double stops, I have a couple. So if you remember, we did this double stop exercise. We can do the same thing. It's going to incorporate our fourth finger, and it's going to incorporate droning with our first finger across both D and A strings here. So to get this, your first finger has to be precisely in between your D and your A string. We're going to play a G scale in third position, droning the D and the A strings, and we're going to use our fourth finger to hit the notes that we were using our third finger for down here. So it would sound like this. Without the drone. Okay, so that's a good exercise that helps you understand playing double stops in third position. I'm going to show you one more that is kind of a combination of working on playing double stops in third position as well as a speed drill. So this, I use it just to kind of warm up sometimes. We're going to do the same concept we did when we took and we put our first finger across both strings on the D and the A string. We're going to do the same here, but we're going over the A and the E string. So we're playing out of the key of D. You have a first finger that's playing a D note on your A string. you have your first finger that's also playing an A note on your E string. So this is home. You should be comfortable in getting there. And as you play this exercise, your first finger will not move. It stays down the entire time, as it should in the prior exercise. I didn't mention that, but it's very helpful to keep your first finger anchored, and it's your home base. So here, we're going to go through a series of different chords. This would be one of them, right? Next, go up and find a major third note. This is going to be an F sharp note. Third finger on your A string in third position. Your fourth finger lays down right next to it on the E string. So you're playing a D note with your fourth finger on the E string up in third position. Okay? So that's one chord. Okay, for the next chord, you're going to use your second finger on the A string in third position. You're playing an E note here. And you're going to go up and catch a C sharp with your third finger, and you're going to play that on the E string. So 2, 3. Okay. Next chord, and just practice getting these chords down, and I'll show you the exercise in a minute here. But I want to talk through each of the sort of forms we're using. These are really based around muscle memory, so understanding what chords you should be hitting is very important. So the next one, you keep your first finger down again, and you're playing your first finger D note with a B note above it on the E string. Now, we have a fourth finger, two-finger combo. So you're playing a G note with your fourth finger. You're playing a B note with your second finger. And then the final one, and we'll string all these together, is just a regular third finger, major, and then first finger again on the E string. So I'm walking through these chord progressions, and I'm using it as a speed drill. What I've found is that it helps when you slur these together. So I'll play it slowly. We start down. Okay, that's the first phrase. Do a slur up to your 3-4 combination. You come off of the 4-3, still in a down bow. So you have 3 sort of notes, if you will, 3 double stops that are all on a down bow here, followed by an up bow on the 1 and 1. So you repeat that. Now you're going to switch to the next chord pattern. Okay, and so that's the 2 and the 3. So I'll put those 2 together. Okay, same idea in terms of how many notes are you stringing together on each of these double stops. Down on 3, up on 1. But you're switching your bow direction each time. So the first section is down bow, 3 notes. The second section is up bow, 3 notes. Okay, so moving on, you have a 4 and a 2. Again, that's going to be the most difficult of them because you're using your fourth finger and you're having to come over, keep your fourth out of the way of your second. Okay, your B note, you don't want your fourth finger hanging over and catching your E string to interrupt that tone. And then you end up, the final, just back and forth between your barred 1 chord and your 3-1 chord. Third finger is the major third in your scale, and you're playing it in third position on your A string. So I think a good way to really get up to speed on this is just practice each one of those individually. Okay. So you're having to teach your brain to think about a whole lot of things all at the same time. which is, I think it's a great exercise. I think it's a great way to teach yourself muscle memory, shape form memory, and then just technical ability to pop those down and keep your first finger in place. So let me play it. I'll play it slowly through a couple of times, and then I'll speed it up. And you should work with a metronome on this. Work on your speed. And this will really help you with third position double stops. Here we go slowly. And then as you get more comfortable with this idea, this exercise, get your metronome out and start challenging yourself. Don't push if you're not clean. So if you're not able to hit these notes cleanly, go back. Practice them individually, practice them at a slower speed. But the last thing you want to do, this can be a really crisp sound, and because we're playing a D scale and we have an open ringing D below us, your violin box will actually start to create a D resonant tone that just continues through this exercise. So that's my little tip, to not push too hard, but if you're playing crisply and comfortably and in tune at a particular tempo, that's the time to move up. Bump it up a couple of clicks and see where you stand there, and continue to push yourself as you get better. So here's how I would warm up using this exercise. Okay. So finally, I think it's important to note that we have 4 available fingers. We should be using all of them down here. Fourth finger is difficult. It's, as I mentioned, we're a little bit limited in terms of our ability to create strength with our fourth finger and isolate it from our third finger, because of the fact that I was told one time, I'm not a medical expert, but I guess we have one tendon that controls both of those fingers that's up here in our arm. And so isolating that is a little more difficult. And guess what? It comes out in your playing, because playing a fourth finger drone in tune with your fourth finger out of the way of, say, the A string is difficult. A great song that uses this concept is Sally Gooden. So many of the parts, but especially the first part of this song, relies on you droning that fourth finger. It should be exactly the same tone as your open A. It'll have a different sort of color to the tone because you're fingering it, and you can vibrato, but it should be the same pitch. Okay, so I would recommend just practicing walking up to your fourth finger. To get that idea in place, droning on your A string. And then, once you have that, walk up to your third finger. So we're isolating that fourth finger. It should have a little bit of a bend in it right here. That's to keep it out of the way. You should be pressing down at all times with the very tip of your finger. Clip your fingernails if they're getting in your way. You never want your finger flat on the fiddle. It's just basic technique stuff, but it becomes very important when you're playing with your fourth finger, because you have to come down straight with that bend in your fourth finger to keep your finger out of the way of the A note. Okay, so that's an idea to just give you some strength on the fourth finger. Finally, these double stops, it's really, if you think about it, you have a lot of options because you have 2 strings to play around. And so a lot of times I'll use moving notes on both strings. So you might have, so say you're in the key of D, and you want to go to a G chord, okay? So you're going to, say this, you're starting here, and you're going to end up here. So 3-1 is your G major and major third note. But to get there, let's use a 7 note out of the D scale. Okay, in a double stop. So what we did there is we moved a note here, but nothing moved on the D string there. That's heading towards what I'm talking about, not necessarily the best example. Maybe another one would be the second half of a beautiful waltz out of the key of B flat. So I'm not going to get into that whole song, but I just wanted to show you the idea that you can move your fingers on both strings at the same time. There I'm walking down to out of the key of D, I'm going to a C chord to lead to a G chord. Or again with that B flat song. That's definitely difficult. I came up out of my first finger position to catch a low C, a C natural note. And then if you are really excited about double stops and you would like a challenge, you should look at a song called Gardenia Waltz that's taught on the site. The darn thing's almost 100% double stops. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for a basic player. But if you're looking to stretch as a player, looking to really challenge yourself with double stops, what a great song. And that will challenge you. It challenges me. It's the toughest waltz I know how to play. And so I would encourage you, once you get these under your belt and are looking for additional ways to improve as a player with double stops, take a look at Gardenia Waltz. It'll frustrate you, but it's worth the work. So there you go. There's double stops. There's my take on it, a few exercises, the beginning of a Shokin farewell, and a few other ideas along the way. Good luck.